NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for, of course, his Emmy-nominated role
Via Grande, Costa Rica, where turquoise waves crash into the wild, tangled arms of the jungle. On any other day, it's a picture-perfect paradise. But on July 20th, something far more haunting took over that beach. Malcolm Jamal Warner, 54, was on a family getaway, walking into the ocean for what should have been a peaceful, grounding moment. Instead, it turned into a tragic final chapter. He stepped into the water and never made it back. Authorities say a strong current pulled him under, catching him off guard. Witnesses rushed to pull his body to shore, and the Red Cross fought to bring him back for over 2
The incident took place on Sunday in Costa Rica. He was on a family vacation. He was swimming off of the coast of a town called Cocles in the province of Limon. He was swimming at Playa Grande. I mean, I've visited Costa Rica a few times. I was there with my family a few years ago, and those currents can be very
20 minutes. But the silence that followed was deafening. Warner was ganoned this time. It was final. The official story: accidental drowning. Swept away by a current, no foul play. But for many, that explanation feels eerily convenient, especially considering how fast the narrative was cleaned up and closed. This wasn't just anyone. This was Theo, a cultural icon, a symbol of black brilliance, passed down through generations. A rare voice who stood between TV-safe comfort and the raw truth Hollywood keeps trying to bury. So when they say he simply vanished in calm water, we have to ask, what aren't they telling us? Because here's where it starts to get unsettling. A second man, just 29 years old, also entered the water that day. Nicaraguan, supposedly tried to save Malcolm, and yet no name, no interviews, no photos, not even a blurry hospital release. He walked out of that hospital a ghost. Why the secrecy? If he was just a bystander trying to help, why the blackout? And then there's the part no one can make sense of. Malcolm was a strong swimmer. His friends say so. Locals say the tide wasn't even dangerous that day. Playa Grande can get rough. Sure, but it's a monitor.
So unbelievable there. And Branson, I also was reading that just days ago, he had another podcast episode that was dropped, and now a lot of fans are starting to really listen to that as maybe one of his last times that you hear of.
Familiar beach. So how does a healthy man vanish in shallow waters? On a calm day, with no warning. It doesn't sit right, not at all. And then there's the timing. Just days before his sudden death, Warner released what would turn out to be his final podcast episode. Not all Hood, his own creation, had barely been live for a month. But this episode, it hit different. It wasn't light, it wasn't laid back. It was bold, unfiltered. A direct confrontation with how Hollywood exploits black culture, turning struggle into stereotypes and selling it back for profit. He didn't sugarcoat it. He said, there is an aspect of just living in this country where so much of the deck has been stacked against us. But looking back, it didn't sound like a podcast. It sounded like a warning. Did he know that telling these truths loud publicly might place him on that dangerous path? Because history's shown us what happens next. We've seen this movie before. Outspoken, brilliant black artists start pulling back the curtain. They start naming names, calling out systems, making the machine uncomfortable. And then suddenly, they're gone. From Prince to Nipsey, Chadwick, Michael, the pattern isn't subtle anymore. Warner wasn't reckless. He was smart, precise. Which is exactly why his final words hit like a prelude to something bigger. Something that now might never come. He even said, no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. And if you can't find one, maybe it's time to become one for someone else. But was that optimism? Or foreshadowing? Some are calling it the blacklist theory, an alleged, unspoken list circulated among industry elites. A quiet exile. For those who challenge too much, speak too loudly, refuse to play nice. The consequences? Silent, sudden, permanent. This supposed list includes artists, actors, and creators who stop getting roles overnight. Or worse, did Warner end up on that list? And if so, who put him there? Look again at the timeline. His podcast gains traction in early June. By mid-July, he's tackling legacy, manipulation, cultural theft topics most actors dance around. Then, just days later, he's gone. And the official response, sanitized, sealed, suspiciously neat. While friends mourn and fans honor him, the Costa Rican authorities put the whole case to bed. Accidental drowning. No press conference. No detailed report. No follow-up on the second man. Not even a proper timeline. Just that's it. Warner reportedly went for a peaceful swim around sunrise. But what happened next? Authorities only say his body was found. hundreds of yards away, in a rocky, secluded cove. No details about how long he was missing, how far the current could have realistically pulled him, or what condition he was in when found. But this next part is strange. The so-called rescuer, remember him, was supposedly in critical condition just hours after Warner was discovered. And yet, within 48 hours, he was not only stable, but completely discharged. No complications, no visible trauma. Just gone. Dr. Mauricio Solano Carrello confirmed the timeline, but even he seemed puzzled by the recovery speed. That kind of turnaround, it doesn't track. Especially not for someone allegedly pulled under by the same deadly current. We're not saying he wasn't trying to help, but it raises a chilling question: was he really just there to help? Or was he there for something else entirely? Something we're not being told. Now here's the part that's raising even more eyebrows. What if the unnamed man in the water wasn't a stranger at all? Some sources whisper he might have been part of Warner's entourage, even though Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Agency insists there's no known connection. Still, eyewitnesses say the interaction looked anything but random. He didn't just jump in. He was already in the water, watching, waiting. So was this really a rescue? Or a rendezvous? It's a lot to dismiss as coincidence. A podcast host, who just started challenging cultural control, drowns under vague circumstances, while a nameless man disappears without a trace. Warner wasn't some flash-in-the-pan star. His Hollywood career spanned decades. 80 for acting credits to his name. TMZ even released what may be the final photo of him at the airport on July 13th, arriving in Costa Rica. A week later, he was gone. We scoured the reports, and what keeps jumping out is the vagueness. Swept away. Bystanders attempted rescue. Taken to shore. No clear sequence. No eyewitness breakdown. No moment-by-moment account of what actually happened when Warner vanished. That type of haze doesn't normally surround celebrity deaths, not unless there's something someone doesn't want us to see. So what's missing, and why? Warner once said in a 2013 interview, "I have peace of mind, and for me, you can't put a price on that." He wasn't chasing clout. He had a wife, a daughter, a life rooted in purpose, not performance. He'd stepped away from fame on purpose, and just when he was finding a new voice, a freer voice, that voice was cut off. Since his death, his co-hosts Way Baraka and Candace Kelly have gone completely silent. No new episodes, no tribute, nothing. It's like the whole show was erased overnight. And while headlines remember him as Theo, few are connecting the dots on what Malcolm was actually doing. This wasn't just an actor lost at CS, was a truth-teller whose podcast was beginning to make waves. Wendell Pierce said it best: Warner was a creative force across film, music, writing. He embodied self-determination. And Eddie Griffin. He dropped a line that chilled us all. "We went to war with the Hollywood machine. Not worked with, went to war." So what was the battle? And who were they fighting? In recent years, Warner had started mentoring younger actors, pushing them to question the roles they accepted, the stereotypes they portrayed. He wasn't just remembering the past. He was challenging the very system that once gave him fame and, that insiders say, doesn't sit well with Hollywood's gatekeepers. And now, a beloved actor dies mysteriously. A rescuer disappears into the fog. A podcast fades out with no closure. Warner's final episode, in hindsight, reads like a coded farewell. And yet, there's barely a whisper in mainstream media asking real questions. Just soft headlines. Tragic loss. Gone too soon. But we're not letting it go, because something here isn't closed. There are cracks in the story. And Warner wasn't done speaking. He represented more than nostalgia. He represented identity, memory, revolution. "Theo Huxtable was me," one fan said. "He was the first person I saw on TV who looked like me, who lived like me." And when you widen the lens, you start seeing a pattern that's harder to ignore. Chadwick's private battle, Kobe's chopper on a foggy morning, Nipsey's murder on his own block. Different causes, same impact, same silence. These men weren't just entertainers. They were architects of culture. They redefined how black excellence is seen, how stories are told, how systems are questioned. And every time one of them goes silent, we're told, it's chance, an accident, a random tragedy. But how many times can coincidence carry the weight of loss before it starts looking like a blueprint? No, we're not claiming there's a single hand guiding all these losses, but we are saying each time a powerful black voice is silenced, the system breathes easier. Warner belonged to that lineage. He wasn't clinging to his sitcom past, he was reframing legacy, confronting the powers that be, and speaking on mental health, media lies, and cultural theft. Respectability, optics, chronic misrepresentation. Malcolm had the reach, the respect, and maybe most dangerously nothing left to prove to the machine. That combo, it sets off alarms in rooms we never get to enter. Former publicists whisper about lists, unofficial, unspoken, where execs quietly rank who's manageable, who's a risk, and who's about to become a liability. Two separate managers told us how studios handled the so-called threats. It's rarely an outright blacklist. No, it's quieter, more surgical. Deals slow down. Red carpets, stop calling. In public image, suddenly, it's difficult, unreliable, or in the most disturbing cases, tragedy, neatly framed, easily digested. Nothing to see here, just another accident. Cue soft music, insert a candlelight tribute. We've seen this before. We're watching it happen again. But this time, we're not blinking. We zoom back in on Costa Rica because that choice wasn't random. Warner didn't move without intent. He was deliberate about work, about legacy, about where he put his name. Costa Rica markets paradise eco resorts, wellness retreats, tax shelters for U.S. investors. But under that glossy brochure lies something murkier, quiet corruption, silent courts, a tourism machine trained to suppress anything that might rattle the brand. So we ask again, why Playa Grande? Why mid-afternoon, when the beach is full, when lifeguards are present? Why a tide not flagged is dangerous that day? Why an anonymous swimmer who just happens to survive, stabilize, and disappear? Dr. Mauricio Solano Carella confirmed the man was treated and discharged without issue. But a man listed as critical doesn't just walk away without media coverage. Not without intentional silence, no exclusive interview, no photo op, not even a PR statement. That's not how rescue stories play out unless someone doesn't want them to. And then the autopsy asphyxiation by submersion, fast-tracked, signed off, filed, done. Costa Rica's judicial body followed protocol. Sure, but the speed is the point. When someone global dies, process usually slows down. This one moved, like clockwork, like a curtain call. We've seen that kind of speed before, when controlling the narrative takes priority over finding the truth. Hollywood does it all the time. NDAs drop like smoke bombs. PR firms pivot entire marketing strategies in a day. Are we really supposed to believe an international celebrity's death was investigated and closed this cleanly, without a communications playbook in place? Because here's what Warner's podcast was really doing. It wasn't about viral moments or shallow headlines. He was building a record, a living archive. Conversations on mental health in Black communities. Cultural appropriation of African traditions. Who gets to be complex and who gets flattened for white consumption? That kind of content scales into schools, think tanks, panels, books. A movement that bypasses TV executives, and that's when Hollywood gets nervous, because you can't license or trademark a revolution without rebranding it. And Warner, he wasn't letting them. He was pushing forward, creating, educating, mentoring, not settling into some washed-up nostalgia role. He was still Theo, yes, but he had more to say. And that word legacy, that's what makes this story feel even heavier. Cultural scholar Samantha Shepard called his death a significant cultural loss because he still mattered to Gen X. 2 early millennials, 2 Black communities who grew up watching him evolve. He wasn't just that guy from that show. He was Grammy-nominated leading podcast conversations, building bridges, mentoring the next generation. And for some, people in power, that's too much complexity for one man. He wouldn't flatten out. He kept asking real questions, and that has consequences. Which brings us full circle, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a pattern. In recent years, we've watched artists and disruptors get hit with the same cycle. Sudden tragedies, health scares, plane crashes, drownings, always isolated, always random, never criminal, at least, not officially. No FBI, no red flags, just quiet goodbyes, black and white tribute posts, and business as usual. Except for the communities still grieving. They see the shadow network, the silent connections, the careers that stop without warning, the questions that don't get asked. And Malcolm Jamal Warner, he wasn't finished yet. He had more to give. And the more you sit with the details, the more it starts to feel like someone or something didn't want him to finish at all. There's a growing mistrust that official reports and industry tributes are telling the full story. And honestly, should we assume they are? By the way, yes, I've got a flower in my hair. My daughter put it there for her birthday, and I'm rocking it proudly. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta, but even in beauty, truth matters, especially when it comes to Malcolm Jamal Warner, a man known for being cautious. Friends say he never traveled without checking the details. He didn't do spontaneous in unfamiliar places. So how does that align with the idea that he just wandered into dangerous waters with no one watching? We spoke with a former road manager who remained anonymous due to current contracts who confirmed that Warner didn't play around when it came to travel security. So who recommended Playa Grande? Did someone connected to the entertainment world help coordinate it? Was a fixer involved someone who knew exactly how jurisdictional red tape could delay first responders? These are the kinds of questions people ask when too many odd details line up too neatly. Now let's talk about the Costa Rican emergency response. The Red Cross says both men were out of the water when help arrived. If that's true, then who pulled them out? How many people were involved? Were they trained? And why hasn't a single one of them come forward on social media? We live in a clout-chasing era. People film everything. But in this case, silence. That silence could be respect or it could be enforced through signed legal agreements. Let's not forget, Hollywood knows how to manage international crises. PR firms in LA and New York have multilingual teams specifically trained to keep incidents from turning into PR disasters. So if Warner's final podcast was seen as a threat to bold, too honest, too close to exposing uncomfortable truths, it wouldn't take a supervillain to manage the optics. Just a few well-timed calls, a media freeze, and a thankful foreign government happy to stay out of us drama. Even the tributes that followed were telling. Tracy Ellis Ross called him warm, gentle, kind, thoughtful, while Beyoncé simply said, "Rest in power." Beautiful words, but notice the restraint. Not one powerful voice is publicly asking the real questions. No one's asking why. The rescuer's identity is still a mystery. Why the official records were wrapped up so quickly. Why Warner's podcast feed went silent like someone flipped a switch. That silence says more than the sympathy ever could. Officially, Warner drowned at a beach in Costa Rica. He was 54, and maybe that's all there is. Maybe it really was a tragic accident. Maybe currents don't care how careful you are. Maybe the rescuer just wants privacy. That's the official version, and maybe it's true. But when you put it alongside the growing list of black cultural figures who challenge the system, only to die suddenly under strange circumstances, it starts to feel like more than coincidence. Warner's legacy wasn't just built on The Cosby Show. He moved with integrity. He chose roles that meant something. His final podcast wasn't for attention, it was a layered exploration of black identity, pushing past stereotypes. He wasn't trying to trend, he was trying to tell the truth. And when someone with his cross-generational reach picks up a mic and starts peeling back layers, the system pays attention. And now, that journey's been cut short. We're left with a calm beach and a loud silence, a mysterious rescuer who hasn't stepped forward, an investigation that closed with unsettling speed, and a final project that reads like a warning cut off mid-sentence. We're staring at a list of black legends who didn't make it to their final act, and we're forced to ask the real question. If Malcolm Jamal Warner could be silenced right after sharpening his message, who's next? Tell us what you think. Who do you trust and who don't you? Because at some point, this stops being coincidence. It starts looking like a playbook. We'll be watching your comments, and we're not done digging. Stay loud, stay sharp, and until next time, hold your breath. But not your truth.